What was the explanation of the roughing the passer play?
No explanation.
So
there wasn't an explanation. What do you want me to say?
I was just saying,
my opinion on it?
Yeah.
No opinion on it.
How much did the false start on the 2-point conversion attempt at the end change your play calling there? Or?
Everything. I mean, it's significant. From the 2 to the significant.
Were you thinking before that, like he switched quarterbacks, were you thinking of potential run play with Payton?
We'll see. I'm not going to tell you what play it was, Catherine. Seriously.
Not a play, but I just want to know how much that changed your opinion.
Next question. Obviously, it changes the play when you're on the 2 when you go to the 7.
An agitated Sean Payton after Sunday's loss to the Titans, which featured a phantom roughing the passer call, what Chris Sims now calls nothing the passer, that took an interception off the board, gave Tennessee the ball back. They scored a touchdown. Isn't that great? I was searching for something, and he just blurted it out the other day, and it's like, genius.
Excellent.
Nothing the passer. Anyway, on Monday night, Payton said, hey, it is called roughing the passer. We expect to see roughing, without commenting on any specific plays, mind you. He's being very careful there because he doesn't want to be fined. Here he is from yesterday's Dan Patrick Show, which follows us here on Peacock, talking about officiating generally without delving into any specific complaints he may have about specific bad calls that specifically screwed the Saints on Sunday. Here he is.
Those kind of things can happen. You know, I mean, they just and I look at that more from an overall leadership perspective and training perspective, and like that, those problems start at the top, not at the individual crews. I know there's a number of people in our positions that believe these guys should be full time. I mean, that they should be coming back Monday in centralized locations. How are 17 crews ever going to be on the same page when there's a conference call or a Zoom call, and then that? But that's for another day. Right now, we have to improve.
Yes,
like we have to. And look, everyone watching and participating and involved in it deserves better.
Absolutely. And there are so many different things the NFL can do to improve the officiating, from embracing sky judge / booth umpire / whatever term they want to use for it, to having full-time officials who are engaged actively in meetings and film review and efforts to ensure consistency and accuracy of calls, not just going back to their hometowns where they spend some time on their primary job and some time on their side gig. No, you're all in, skin in the game, fully and completely. This is your profession. You're paid accordingly. That's the problem. They don't want to pay them accordingly, Peter, but they need these folks to be full-time, all-time, full focus, have your meetings, get together, review the calls, strive to improve. I think that's what Sean Payton's getting at. The question is, will the NFL ever do it?
Mike, 3 quick points to make about that. Number one, I think the NFL will probably be motivated to think about it if there are 3 or 4 more games like there have been the last 2 weekends. I would argue that the wrong team lost. And so obviously then the wrong team won 1 game in each of the last 2 weekends. Chicago got totally jobbed at Pittsburgh. And, and forget the horrendous call on Cassius Marsh, which, look, because Chicago came back and scored after that, it's not as big a deal as it could have been, giving Pittsburgh late in the game a fresh set of downs. The bigger miss in that game was James Daniel, the pulling guard of the Chicago Bears, whiffing or barely touching T.J. Watt when Daniel, both feet, are still in the tackle box. Okay? And it was called a low block, and it took away a touchdown from the Chicago Bears. Bears obviously end up losing the game. Then the Saints at Tennessee on Sunday. Obviously, the totally phony roughing the passer call on Caden Ellis of the Saints. And look, the amazing part of this call, okay, is when the referee announces it to the crowd, he said basically head-to-head contact, helmet-to-helmet contact on that. And there was no helmet-to-helmet contact. And the amazing thing is, there's the umpire who threw the flag behind him. He's 5 yards away. There he is. He's 5 yards away, and there's nothing in the way. Nothing. And he called a helmet-to-helmet late hit on the quarterback. It's just utterly preposterous. But, Mike, the bigger issue, the overarching issue, you talk about the sky judge, there are already 2 fixer mechanisms in place. Walt Anderson is watching all these games from the officiating command center on Park Avenue in New York. He has a direct communication line to the ear of the referee in every game that's played. He can say, listen, you got to look at that call again, or let us look at that call again, have a crew conference. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look right. The same thing is the replay official can also buzz down and say words to the effect of, man, that call didn't happen. It's a phantom call. We don't see it up here, or I don't see it up here.
But the procedure doesn't
Where
allow that. The
are
current
they?
procedure doesn't allow that. They don't allow they have a very limited range where they can assist
Right.
without the full-blown replay function. Not that the full-blown replay function could even be activated for roughing the passer. I've been an advocate for years of having someone who's dressed out in black and white stripes and walks into the replay booth and is there as a member of the crew who can say, pick up that flag, who can say, drop a flag, who can participate actively in conferences on everything that happens because that person sees what we see. And I think what they're doing now is the baby step toward it, but currently there is no mechanism for anyone telling Barry Anderson, pick up that flag. That's the problem.
Other than have a crew conference and discuss that. Are you sure you saw that? You can say that. And so
Right.
Why can't they say that? Why in the world do they say, oh, no, I'm sure about this? If they're telling you from New York or from upstairs that it's a phantom call, you better think very seriously about having a crew conference and picking up the flag.
But they're not allowed to. See, this gets back to when it's appropriate to break the rules. And Rams Saints 2018 NFC Championship. All Al Riveron had to do was just say real quickly, press the button, drop a flag. There was interference, drop a flag now, drop a flag now. It would have been a gross and blatant violation of the procedures. And if it had ever come out, the Rams could have complained all they wanted. But who's going to say, well, Rams, you got a point. They violated their internal protocols to drop a flag that needed to be dropped. Nobody would have been nearly as upset as the Saints and their fans who boycotted the Super Bowl. The rating plummeted for that Super Bowl in New Orleans. They didn't want to have anything to do with it after that call. So you have to know when to break the rules. And what you're suggesting, and I think it would have been an appropriate outcome, somebody says to the referee, go have a crew conference, talk about this, because I don't think that was roughing. You can't do it technically, but you can do it practically. I am an advocate of getting to the point where you can do it technically and practically. It's the rule. It's the approach that person in the booth is a member of the crew, has the same standing as the crew, has the same attendance at meetings, knowledge of the rule book and everything, just has the perspective we have at home. That's the biggest problem the NFL has right now. The disconnect between what the officials who are among the gladiators see in real time with the naked eye at full speed and what the rest of us see at home. And if you can bridge that gap with what we see at home and fix the calls in real time, that goes a long way toward not giving us things that we can talk about and complain about and that coaches can complain about justifiably after the games.
Look, Mike, something's got to be done. You're right. Sean Payton's right. I'm not even convinced that this is worse than it ever has been, because I don't really think that's the case. I think every year there are abominable calls and non-calls, and we scream about it every year. The fact is, however it's done, whether they give the replay official the power that you would give, let's say, a sky judge, or whether you give Walt Anderson in New York or his lieutenants in the officiating command center, whether you give them that power, I do think that something has to be done if you're going to have so many cameras on games that show you things like Caden Ellis never touching Ryan Tannehill's head.
And I agree with you. It's not that it's worse. It's that the mistakes are more easily witnessed in high-def 80-inch TV screens across the country. And the NFL is reacting to the criticism by doing nothing, saying nothing. Remember, you used to say, and I credit you for this all the time, when Al Riveron took over for Dean Blandino, during the season, the person who is the liaison between the league office and the media and the fans when it comes to explaining calls, discussing issues in officiating is the most important job in the entire league office. Currently, that position is abdicated. There is no one. And the last 2 weeks, we have gotten a minute to a minute and a half of Perry Fewell reading off of a teleprompter in very conclusory fashion about calls that were proper, not calls that were improper. There's no one there. Their approach is stick their head in the sand and ignore it because the next bright, shiny object is coming. We don't have to talk about our flaws and mistakes because they'll forget about them when the next game is served up.
Mike, it's like I said a couple of weeks ago when everyone is screaming about all the controversies around the NFL, the Gruden story, the Washington emails not being released. You know what the NFL counts on? That is a gigantic story for 2 or 3 days, and they count on the white noise of Sunday obliterating everything. Because people don't really watch football to read about emails that the Washington football team or somebody investigating the Washington football team has uncovered. They watch because they can't wait to see Dak Prescott versus Patrick Mahomes. That is the white noise that I'm talking about. It obliterates everything in its path. And so on Monday, it was funny. On Sunday, I was thinking to myself, man, I'm going to write maybe 1,000 words in my column about officiating because I cannot get over this Cassius Marsh call. Not necessarily that the call was made, okay, but that the NFL put out a video defending the call in which a guy from 30 feet away who said nothing was basically given a flag for posturing. That's what it was called. It was called posturing. We didn't like his posture. Okay? And then not only do they give him a flag for posturing, and not only do they come out 3 days later and say, we're defending our flag for taunting, then they fine him $6,000. It's just after, by the way, being hip checked by Tony Correnti. And I just, that to me, I don't care what you think about that call, whether that was an egregious call, whatever you think about the call. What followed from the hip check to the confirmation of it on video with somebody from the officiating department, and then a fine is, I can't think of how outrageous and how outlandish it is, but it is.
3 very, very quick points, and then we got to take a break. Number 1, they had to fine him because if they hadn't fined him, they would have been implicitly acknowledging that he didn't engage in illegal posturing. Second, they love the controversy that arose over the Cassius Marsh posturing call because it obscured the horrendous take a touchdown off the board for a low block that didn't happen outside the tackle box. They love that we were talking about Cassius Marsh and not that. And third and finally, Peter, they've created a standard, posturing, that is not going to be consistently applied. I had a coach send me this week video of Spencer Brown, the rookie Bills right tackle, after pancaking a guy on a 15-yard touchdown run by Matt Breida, who aggressively postured to the Jets sideline. Now, maybe they just think, It's the Jets. They're not going to start a rumble over this. But if you're going to call it, if you're going to call posturing and defend it as posturing, you better be looking for any and all posturing you see. Otherwise, your standard is all over the place, and you throw a flag whenever you feel like it, and you keep your flag tucked away whenever you feel like not throwing the flag. That's the kind of
one final question
that
Mike,
the game doesn't need. Go ahead.
One final question before we go to break. Do you think Tony Correni's going to get the Super Bowl assignment this year?
I don't. You know what? They could give it to him just as a middle finger to all of us that we don't care. He's doing what we want. But, I don't think we're going to see number 99 on the back of the referee's jersey when February 13 rolls around at SoFi Stadium. That's for sure.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.